I used to believe that trust was the strongest foundation of love, that if two people loved each other enough, they could survive anything: financial stress, personal loss, the slow, quiet erosion of time. I believed our love was a fortress, built brick by brick with shared secrets, inside jokes, and the gentle certainty of waking up next to the same person every morning. But nothing, not the vows we made under a wide Texas sky, not the house we built room by room, not the years we shared that felt like a single, continuous breath, prepared me for the day when a sterile, fluorescent-lit courtroom in Travis County, Texas, became the place my entire world fell apart. My name is Amanda Reed, and this is my story. When I met Daniel, I wasn't looking for love. I had just moved to Austin after finishing my degree in early childhood education, armed with a heart full of idealism and a bank account that begged to differ. I rented a small, sun-drenched apartment on South Lamar Boulevard, its windows looking out onto a sprawling live oak. I started my first teaching job at a local elementary school, where my days were filled with the scent of crayons and the sound of small, earnest voices learning to read. My weekends were my own. I explored the labyrinthine stalls of the Barton Creek Farmers Market, spent hours lost in the dusty poetry sections of used bookstores, and hiked the trails around Lady Bird Lake, feeling the city's vibrant, quirky energy seep into my bones. Daniel walked into my life like a calm breeze on a warm Sunday, the kind that rustles the leaves but promises no storm. It was at a church barbecue, an event my sister had dragged me to in an effort to help me build community. He was standing by the lemonade pitcher, looking slightly out of place in his crisp button-down, a contrast to the sea of polo shirts. He wasn't loud or flashy. He was charming in a soft-spoken way, with kind eyes that crinkled at the corners when he smiled. He had this innate, steadying presence, a way of listening that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. He told me he worked as a systems analyst and had just returned from a 6-month project in Denver. I still remember the first thing he said to me, his voice a low, warm baritone that seemed to settle my usual social anxiety. "I don't usually talk to strangers at church," he admitted, a shy grin playing on his lips, "but I'd regret it for the rest of the week if I didn't come over and say hello to you." He made me laugh that day, a real, unforced laugh that started deep in my belly. It felt easy. We went on our first date a week later at a tiny bohemian coffee shop near Zilker Park, a place with mismatched armchairs and the rich, bitter scent of roasted beans. He was waiting for me with a single, perfect sunflower, its bright yellow face turned towards me. It was so corny, so wonderfully, unabashedly sweet, that I pressed it between the pages of my journal that night, a golden secret pressed against lined paper. We fell in love fast and hard. It was the kind of love that feels like remembering a forgotten song. We finished each other's sentences, spent hours talking about everything and nothing. Our childhood dreams, our favorite constellations, the kind of parents we hope to be one day. He spoke of wanting a family, a house full of noise and chaos and love. I echoed the sentiment, picturing a home filled with the pitter-patter of little feet, a vision that felt so tangible I could almost hear it. By our second anniversary, he proposed on the Ann W. Richards Congress Avenue Bridge, with the downtown skyline glittering on one side and the dark, silent water below. As the bats swarmed out at dusk in a great chattering cloud, he got down on one knee. A crowd of tourists and locals clapped. I cried tears of pure, unadulterated joy. We kissed like we were the only two people in the world, the city's heartbeat a distant thrum. Married life was good. Not perfect, but a good I was deeply grateful for. We bought a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house in Round Rock with a generous backyard, perfect for the future children we envisioned. Daniel worked long hours, sometimes late into the night, but I believed him when he said it was for us, for the down payment, for the future college funds, for the life we were meticulously building spreadsheet by spreadsheet. I poured myself into our home, teaching by day and spending evenings and weekends painting walls, hanging curtains, and planning our future in every brushstroke. Our home became a living scrapbook of our love. Photos from our honeymoon in Costa Rica on the mantle, a quilt my grandmother made on our bed, the pressed sunflower now framed in our hallway. His travel started to pick up. Business trips, he said. Mostly to Dallas, sometimes back to Denver. He was a diligent correspondent at first. He'd send me pictures of sleek hotel lobbies, artfully plated steak dinners from high-end restaurants, and the lonely view from an airport lounge. "Wish you were here," he'd text. I missed him, but I never had a reason to doubt him. Trust wasn't something I gave him, it was the air we breathed. But then, almost imperceptibly at first, the atmosphere began to change. The phone calls when he was away became shorter, more rushed. His explanations for delayed flights or last-minute meetings grew vague, peppered with tech jargon I didn't understand. Once, burning with a missing him ache, I called his hotel room late at night just to whisper "I love you" into his sleeping ear. A woman's voice, blurred with sleep, answered, "Hello?" My heart seized. "I'm sorry, I must have the wrong number," I stammered. "No, you..." she started, then there was a fumbling sound and the line went dead. When I called Daniel's cell, he answered on the first ring, voice clear and alert. "Amanda? Everything okay?" "Who was that?" I asked, my voice trembling. Who? What are you talking about, honey? The hotel front desk must have patched you through to the wrong room. This place is a maze." He sounded so plausible, so genuinely concerned. I believed him because I wanted to, because the alternative was unthinkable. Love, I learned, has a way of silencing the internal alarms we should be hearing at a deafening volume. Then came the credit card statements. I was balancing our checkbook, a task we shared, when I saw them. Charges from a boutique baby store in Dallas called The Silver Rattle, a dinner bill for two at a notoriously romantic, intimate bistro, a weekend charge for a couple's spa package at a resort outside of Fort Worth. When I confronted him, my voice shaking as I held the printed paper, he didn't flinch. "The Silver Rattle is for my VP's wife. She just had a baby. It's a client gift," he explained smoothly. "The dinner was with the whole team from their Dallas office. And the spa, that was a mix-up, honey. I was disputing that charge. Must be fraud." He hugged me tightly that night. His familiar scent of soap and clean laundry enveloped me. I buried my face in his chest, clinging to the words, using them to smother the ember of doubt flickering in my gut. I wanted to believe him. I did. The day it all ended began with a legal notice, a thick, official envelope from the Travis County District Clerk. I didn't understand why I'd been summoned. Daniel brushed it off with practiced ease when I showed it to him, barely looking up from his laptop. "It's probably a clerical error," he said, his tone dismissive. "Might be related to a client's messy divorce case. Their files get cross-referenced sometimes. Just ignore it." But the letter had his name on it, clear as day. "In regard to the parent-child relationship of Daniel Reed and Ella Thompson." A cold dread, sharp as a shard of ice, lodged itself in my chest. I didn't ignore it. I remember the Wednesday morning of the hearing with a surreal, slow-motion clarity. I wore a simple navy blue dress, my hands clutching my purse so tightly my knuckles were white. The Travis County family courtroom was all polished wood and solemn silence, the air thick with the weight of 100 broken promises. Daniel was supposed to meet me there, but he was late. I sat on a hard wooden bench, confused and alone, my mind racing through 1,000 benign explanations. Then he walked in, his face ashen. He didn't sit next to me. He took a seat at the respondents' table across the aisle, not meeting my eyes. Before I could call out to him, a woman entered, holding the hand of a little girl. The woman, Leah, had soft brown curls and tired, anxious eyes. She didn't look like a villain from a soap opera. She looked ordinary, like someone I might be friends with. She looked like a mother. The little girl, no more than 2, had a head of blonde curls and Daniel's exact shade of brilliant, clear blue eyes. My breath hitched. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. The judge, a woman with a stern face and a no-nonsense tone, called the court to order. Then she said the words that froze the very blood in my veins. Case number 2023 FM 04521, Reed and Thompson. Mr. Reed, this hearing concerns the establishment of paternity, child support, and visitation rights for your 2-year-old daughter, Ella Thompson. A roaring filled my ears. Daughter. The word echoed, meaningless and yet devastating. I didn't know who Ella was. I didn't even know Daniel had been seeing anyone else. This wasn't a fling, this was a child, a person. The lawyer for the child support agency kept talking, his voice a dry, bureaucratic drone. He listed dates, amounts, and acknowledgement of paternity. Daniel had signed the birth certificate. He had been at the hospital. He had been listed as the father from the very beginning. While I was at home painting the nursery we never got to use, a soft buttery yellow, he had been in a delivery room in Dallas holding another woman's hand. I learned everything in that courtroom, each fact a fresh blow. Leah wasn't a mistake. She was a relationship. A 3-year relationship that had overlapped our entire marriage. They had met on one of his early trips to Dallas. Ella was his daughter. He had a second home, a second life, a second family. The boutique baby store, the romantic dinners, the couple spa. They weren't client gifts or fraud. They were his other life. I remember whispering to myself, the words a desperate prayer. No, this isn't real. This can't be happening. But it was. It was the most real thing that had ever happened to me. When the hearing ended, a procedural formality that had dismantled my existence in 15 minutes, Daniel finally looked at me. His eyes were wide with a panicked plea. He tried to follow me as I stood, my legs numb and unsteady. "Amanda, please," he hissed. I walked straight out of the courthouse, pushing through the heavy doors. The Texas sun, usually so comforting, hit me like a cruel spotlight. I didn't cry, not then. I was too numb, too utterly hollowed out to produce tears. I sat in my car for what felt like an eternity, the steering wheel cool beneath my trembling hands, watching the world go on as if it hadn't just ended. But that night, alone in the house we built, the dam broke. I screamed. I screamed into a pillow until my throat was raw and burned. I tore down the wedding photos from the walls, the one on the mantle of us cutting the cake, the one from Zilker Bridge, the one where I was looking up at him, my face radiant with a love I now knew was a lie. The glass in the frames shattered on the hardwood floor, 1,000 glittering shards of our past. I wrenched my wedding ring from my finger and threw it into the kitchen utensil drawer, where it landed with a final metallic clink among the potato peelers and bottle openers. It felt like handling poison. When he finally came home later, his key turning in the lock sounded like a trespass. He tried to explain, his words tumbling out in a frantic, pathetic jumble. "Amanda, I never meant to hurt you. It just happened. I love you. This doesn't change how I feel about you. I was going to tell you. I was trying to find a way. But how do you explain another family? How do you love someone when your love has been sharing space, time, and a heart with a complete separate existence?" His words weren't explanations. They were just more lies layered over the foundational lie of our life together. I packed a small suitcase that night, my movements robotic. I threw in jeans, t-shirts, toiletries, unable to think beyond the next hour. I drove to my sister's house in San Antonio, the highway lights streaking past my blurred vision, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. The question echoed in the empty space he had left inside me. Who am I without him? The answer then was nobody. I felt like a ghost. The divorce process was brutal in its clinical efficiency. Texas may have no-fault divorce, but betrayal isn't just a legal term. It's a wound that gets prodded and reopened with every document, every disclosure statement, every discussion of marital assets. The lawyers talked about the division of our 401k, spousal support, and the sale of the house. But in my head, I kept hearing the echo of that judge's voice. Paternity of your daughter. The words were etched onto my soul. I went to therapy twice a week. My therapist, a serene woman named Grace with kind eyes, was the first person who didn't tell me to just move on or get over it. She made me sit with the pain to understand its shape and texture. She taught me that the betrayal wasn't just the other woman or the child, it was the theft of my reality. For years, I had lived in a world he had constructed for me, and it had been a beautiful, loving place. Its destruction felt like an apocalypse. Grace helped me see that my grief was not just for the man, but for the world I had lost. Slowly, arduously, I stopped blaming myself. I stopped wondering what I had lacked, what I could have done differently. The problem wasn't my waistline, my career, or my conversation. The problem was his character. I sold the house in Round Rock. The for sale sign staked in our perfect lawn was a public declaration of our failure. I moved to a smaller, rented bungalow closer to my school, a place with no history, no ghosts. I adopted a clumsy, loving golden retriever puppy and named her Daisy. Her uncomplicated, tail-wagging joy was a balm. I started taking pottery classes on Tuesday nights, finding a strange, primal comfort in the feel of wet, cool clay spinning between my hands, something I could shape and control entirely on my own. I learned how to sleep through the night without instinctively reaching for my phone to check for his good night text that would never come again. About 6 months after the courtroom, I saw Leah. It was at a Whole Foods in Dallas, a city I usually avoided now. I was visiting a college friend, trying to reclaim pieces of my old life. We were in the produce section, separated by a pyramid of shiny red apples. Our eyes met, and for a moment we just stared, two survivors of the same shipwreck. There was no fight, no dramatic scene. We didn't even talk much. She looked tired, but there was a steadiness to her now. She pushed her cart closer. "Amanda," she said, her voice quiet and direct. "I didn't know," she said, her gaze direct and painfully earnest. "I didn't know he was married, not until recently." And I believed her, because I recognized the same stunned, shattered look in her eyes that I had seen in my own mirror for months. She too had been living in his constructed world. We were both his victims. A year later, the divorce was final. The last piece of paper arrived in the mail, severing the last legal tie. Daniel and I haven't spoken since, except through terse emails from our lawyers. He's with Leah now, and Ella. I hear snippets through mutual acquaintances. They bought a house, Ella started preschool. He is living the life he promised me, just with a different cast. I won't lie and say I'm over it. Some betrayals leave fingerprints on your soul, permanent scars that ache when it rains. But I've built something stronger, something more resilient out of the ruins. I've built myself. I've learned that love, for all its beauty, is not enough. It cannot thrive without the oxygen of honesty. I learned that ignoring red flags don't make them disappear. It only makes you colorblind to the danger ahead. And most importantly, I learned that you can survive the very thing you were certain would destroy you. Now, I walk Daisy every morning along the lake trail near my bungalow. The air often smells of fresh rain and damp earth, a clean, new scent. The world, which had once shrunk to the size of my pain, feels wide and full of possibility again. I smile, not because I have forgotten what happened, but because I didn't let it end me. The pain is no longer a prison. It's a reference point, a reminder of my own resilience. Betrayal doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes it comes on a warm Sunday breeze, in the form of a charming man with a sunflower. It comes from the person sleeping next to you, whose heart is a country you have no map for. But healing doesn't come from revenge or from him. It comes from the daily, quiet act of choosing yourself over the lies. If you're listening and you've been through something similar, if your fortress has crumbled and you're standing in the rubble, know this: your story isn't over. It's just beginning. And the next chapter is yours alone to write.